So I stand on the pro side and agree with the motion that like being a kid is the best years of our life. Now, firstly, we define best years of life as the years that are most satisfactory and useful. My first point is that as a kid, you get to learn and experience new things. When you're a kid, adults focus on things like spending money on you. So you as a kid can learn new things. For example, if you like to draw, your parents can help you like attend a drawing class. Or if you like to play a sport, your parents can also help you teach that sport or find a coach for you. When you're an adult, there isn't much freshness about things because you've been living for a really long time. Maybe a kid like they will feel like this is very fun. I want to like learn a sport, and then they would like you will get to learn and experience new things that will somehow help you in your life as you grow up. My second point is that as a child, you don't have a lot of responsibility over things, so you don't need to care too much about everything. Adults are your guardians. They are in charge of looking after you, and they are the ones who have the responsibility. So being a child is more cheerful because you don't have to care about a lot of things. Many adults say, I wish I was still a kid because they still remember the time when they were a kid where they don't have any worries. They don't have to worry about money. They don't want to have to worry about a budget. All they do is just like enjoy their time as a kid. They can play with their toys. They can like just enjoy being a kid. Now, my third point is that as a child, you have a sense of growth. As an adult, you all you do is like go to work. Nothing new and exciting is happening. You just like get money and stuff. But then when you're a kid, you learn new things, you make new friends, you go to school, and and school can be really fun. You like have lots of friends, you have people who care about you, and you don't have to care too much about everything. My last point is that a kid can be happy with something simple. If you're like a kid and your parents give you maybe like $5, you would probably be happy. If you're like 5 or 6 years old and your parent gives you a new toy for your birthday, or maybe your parent gives you a lollipop or a crayon, you would be happy because you're like, yay, I got something I liked, or I got something that's really cool. I can use this, I can play with this. But an adult, like being happy is something hard because you all have to. So I was saying that like as a kid, you are happy with something simple. Maybe your parent gives you some pocket money, your parent gives you a toy, your parent gives you a piece of candy, or you go to school and meet your friends. You can be happy. But as an adult, maybe there are not lots of happiness in your world because like you have to work, you are under a lot of stress, and like maybe you only are happy when you finally get like $10 from after a long day of work, or you finally got the trip to another country that you like. So that's why I believe that kids can be happier than adults. Thank you.
Childhood are the ages before 18, while adulthoods are the years after. Panel, the opposition stance is clear. We support the belief that adulthood is the best years of life. What do we mean by the best years of life? We mean that adulthood is better than childhood based on a number of factors, such as independence, social life, and wisdom. We as the opposition strongly believe that adulthood years are the best years of life and have two arguments to support this. But before I further develop on these arguments, I will first make some rebuttals against the government. The PM says children that you can experience youth things and you can find what you love. However, in childhood, it's possible to find new hobbies and whatever you like, but what are the actual chances that you will maintain the same lives over like 10, 15, like 10, 11 years? Many people often get new hobbies and dreams as they grow up. And adults often find what they love and want to be in later years, such as college. The PM also stated that children have no responsibilities. However, this is flawed. Children have various responsibilities, and although adults may get stressed by some things, they enjoy some of the responsibilities because they pick their jobs and they pick their families because they love them, not because they just chose them because they want to work more. Now I will move on to my first argument. My first argument is that adulthood is the best years of life because you have more knowledge. When you're a child, of course you make mistakes. Adults tend to have much more experience than children in life, and although they make mistakes as well, it is less frequent for them due to their knowledge. However, children are young and they don't know much, which means that they frequently make mistakes. As children mess up, they learn from these experiences, which teaches them valuable life lessons. As they grow up, their number of mistakes decrease due to their new knowledge, eventually turning them into the adults and role models we know today. These adults therefore have a larger chance of succeeding than children. Unless they happen to encounter an enormous amount of luck and fortune, people almost always succeed when they're intelligent or skilled in something. Yet some who classes star math student in the fifth grade, but college students who experience 12 entire grades of math are still taking lessons will obviously have more knowledge in math and therefore be more prone to success as a mathematician than that smart fifth grader. Adults experience and wisdom that children may lack, which makes it uncommon to succeed at a young age. Now I'm going to move on to my second argument. My second argument is that adulthood is the best years of life because you have more social connection. This doesn't mean at all that children have no friends or lack them. However, this actually means that adults are more likely to keep their social connections going. As a child, you don't really know where you're going to end up, and most children usually swap schools or even countries. This makes it extremely difficult for them to maintain friendships. Yes, you can contact their friends through social media and such, but it's different from in-person interactions and they cannot spend all day with their friends like they do with friends at school. Therefore, it is impossible for someone to maintain friendships from kindergarten to 12th grade. However, in adulthood, after testing out some jobs, you eventually find out where you'll settle, and you probably stay there for the rest of your life, or at least until you retire. This gives you so much room to forge friendships, and because everyone has homes and jobs now, it's extremely common that they will stay there forever as well. Even adults move away, they can still connect, and this friendship actually has a high chance of being maintained in the same scenario with children that I mentioned before. This is because adults are flexible and don't go to school, and it's extremely easy to work online. Therefore, flexibility to meet their friends and spend time with them. With that being said, I beg to oppose the motion. Thank you.
As a deputy leader of the government side, I will start by rebutting our opponents. Their first point about more knowledge basically means that adults tend to make less mistakes and succeed more. However, we'd like to point out that making no mistakes does not mean the best years of life. Like we have pointed out in our definition, we define the best years of life as finding satisfaction and in life. However, having no mistakes, like continuing to succeed always, if you always get top grades in class, you're always the top one in class, you never get the feeling of you finally succeeded in this class. There's no satisfaction of improving yourself and growing yourself, as we pointed out in our third point. Second of all, they talked about relationships and friendships. However, first of all, adults don't necessarily have a lot of stable and long-term friendships. A lot of the friendships they gain are from childhoods. Childhood is the time where they make all kinds of friends, and some they may lose, some they may go on. That's the point. That's the school years that develop these long-term and unstable friendships that they carry over onto adulthood. In adulthood, even though you can work online and develop these friends, there's less chance of you meeting diverse people because you're stuck in your workplace. You're just meeting people that are very limited. There's no chance for you like in your childhood to see all kinds of diverse people who have different interests than you. Because in adulthood, if you work in law, then maybe you mostly be friends with just lawyers. But when you're young, in school, you might meet people who work in mathematics, construction, and that opens your sight and gives you a satisfaction of seeing new things. And sometimes adults don't necessarily make friends because they want friendship. They might make them because they think another person is famous, rich, and important. Basically, when you reach an old age, your interests are getting more less interest, less innocent. They make friends and do things not just for the satisfaction that they have in childhood. They do it because they think it will benefit them in terms of money, in terms of health. And when you're in childhood, you can get the greater satisfaction, because if you make friends just because you want money or fame, then you can't get the actual satisfaction of meeting someone you really like because you're just trying to please them. Kids' friends are just friendly, and they can see their different traits, and they go through a lot of things. Consequences might just in fact help them, like the opposition already pointed out in their first argument. Children do have to face consequences. They make more mistakes, and that's part of a colorful life. What the proposition is telling you is that the best years of life doesn't necessarily mean there's no bumps on the way. There's just success, and minimal consequences. A colorful life is where you go up and down. You experience all kinds of different emotion and growth. You get to learn new things. You get the satisfaction of getting something fresh. You see fresh knowledge and you get surprised by that. That is the happiness and satisfaction that children get in their young age, and at adulthood get pulled down by responsibilities and other needs. The bumps along the ways and the happiness and the disappointment are what make best years the best years. Thank you.
Panel's stance from side opposition is clear until the end of the day. We strongly believe that childhood years aren't better than when you are adults by prioritizing independence and freedom of choice. Three things then: first framing, second rebuttals, and third onto our team's final argument. Proud to oppose. First onto framing then. What does our world look like? Our world looks like a world where we support ages closer to death, and because we are adults for a longer amount of time than childhood, we support this. Even if childhood is the time for you to develop, people say that your life succeeded only at the point where you are an adult. Why? Because as the government team said, childhood is the time to explore. But think about it this way. Childhood is the time to choose your subject or whatnot, while your adulthood, or when you're an actual adult, is the time for you to actually use that in real life and try that out. We think that the point where you do the performance of this subject is more important than at the point where you plan out everything, because at the end of the day, other people will look at your final conclusion more than your plan. Rebuttal said, their first point was about how you experience new things. But do you really think that children only experience success? Children aren't always smart, and they fail as well. The only difference from adults is that they don't get stress, and therefore they don't improve as much. And their second point was on how as a child you don't have a lot of responsibility. So is that government is really wanting to create a world where you give all your responsibility to your parents. Their side is basically saying that they are going to blame everything to their parents. This leads to more failure because they don't learn and they won't be educated as well. And their third point was how you have a sense of growth. But because adults make mistakes as well, at the point where you make mistakes, adults will from them and because they got more stress, and they will improve more than how children does. Their last point was on how a kid can be happy with something simple. Well, their side can only be happy at the point where you get a toy, because adults are still human and they have emotions. They feel happy if they succeed in their job or whatnot. We think that this is a better and more efficient way because they will eventually show more success. Now, straight on to our team's final argument on how we value more independence. This means that when you're an adult, you get to finalize your life in your own way, and you don't get controlled by your parents. The premise of this argument is that your life, the final destination, is when you're an adult, not when you're a child. When you're 5 years old, let's think about this. When you're 5 years old, though people call you smart, they don't actually say, "Ooh, that 5-year-old kid succeeded in living," right? Adults take away the ability for their children to choose their own path of living, and children are like robots that they are programmed. While on the other hand, we create a world where you have so much freedom. You get to choose what you eat, what you do, etc. and etc. Now let me ask you a question. Would you, as an individual, want to be controlled, or would you want to be independent and choose your own life? No matter if your parent, meaning the person that you love the most in your life, is choosing your life, of course you want to be free, right? The government side is just literally saying that people who get control will be the way more enjoying your life. The only point they make from the first exchange is that children get to explore more throughout their early life, and they get to plan things out. However, as I already stated, the part where the part where you use everything as a tool and you finalize your life before the second you die is more important. Why? This is because people say that you've succeeded or say that your life is ruined only at the point where you are 20 years old or above. When you're a child, you get to start your journey, and when you are just open from your mother's belly, right? But when you are an adult, you get to have experiences, and because of more long knowledge that you make your path to success. Then would you want more success or more mistakes? Of course, success, right? Even if you learn by your own mistakes, and adults make mistakes as well, though no one cares if you make mistakes or not when you're in a young age. When you're above 20 years old, you feel stressed out. Though we think that this might be bad, the thing that we want to clearly tell you here is that because you will get more stress, you learn from more mistakes. Therefore, more than proud to oppose. Thank you.
As a government whip of the proposition side, we still firmly believe that childhood years are the best years of life. I'm going to start with rebuttal. So our opponents said that because children have lack of money, adults have more money, so they get to experience more things. We disagree with that because children have more curiosity and chances to experience new things. Parents spend a lot of money on their children, and they can have lots of hobbies, while adults, even if they may have more money, they have less time to use their money because they're focused on the money they can get and the work. Also, they said that adults, they rebutted our argument of growth and said that adults get stressed, so they improve more. We also disagree with that because adults mainly stay on the same place in their life, because once they have a job and it's stable, they just don't improve much. However, with children, they continue to improve and become a better self, and they have a much more unknown future. They can experience. Also, I want to highlight that the opposition side said that children usually successless, but no mistakes and no success doesn't mean that it isn't the best years of their life, because people become better with their mistakes, and mistakes help them learn what they need to do better so that they can avoid these mistakes. If somebody never gets mistake, how can they learn to become better, right? Your parents always tell you that mistakes are the path to success. Also, I want to compare adulthood and childhood now. Firstly, I want to talk about experiencing new things. With adulthood, you get a lot less freshness because you've experienced a lot of the things in life and you've already lived for a long time. However, with children, they're really curious, and they're willing to get really satisfied and happy if they experience new things. Even if it's something simple, they can still get the pleasure that it offers, like a lollipop or $5 of money. These are all things that can make children happier that adults cannot get. Secondly, on responsibility. Adults have a lot of responsibility. Well, the opposition did say that adults like the responsibility. However, adults go to work because they want the money. Even if they do like the responsibility, children have a lot less worries because their parents are there for them, and the only responsibility they have is go to school and study. Okay, also, on growth and improvement. Like we said, adults don't improve much and their life just stays on the same spot once they get a stable job. However, in childhood, you have a lot of different choices and opportunities that you can choose from. It allows you to think about the future and get more satisfied. Lastly, on social connections, they said that adults have more time to social. However, adults have less trusted friends. The reason here is that they have less time to social because of their work and the time they need to to care about their children. So they have less friends that are actually have good relationships. Okay, thank you.
Imagine a world where every child is told, enjoy it now because life only gets worse from here. Panel, that's the world the government wants us to believe in. That childhood is the only time we can be truly happy. But that idea is only unrealistic and unfair. We're on the opposition side believes that happiness and fulfillment are not limited to childhood. Just like our Honorable Second Speaker said, adulthood can bring more freedom, understanding, and purpose, things children simply don't have. I'm going to first move on to my rebuttal. The government argues that childhood gives a sense of growth, but judge, real growth comes from overcoming challenges with independence, making decisions, and taking responsibility, things children rarely get to do. Adults face real-world obstacles, learn from real mistakes, and shape their own future, which gives a far deeper and more meaningful sense of personal growth than childhood ever could. Clash, children growth is often controlled and guided by adults, meaning it is limited and artificial. True growth requires freedom to fail, learn, and improve, which only comes when you have independence. Adults, not children, experience the kind of growth that builds confidence, skill, and lifelong achievement. Next, rebuttal. The government claims that children can be happy with simple things, but judge, simply joys are shallow and temporary compared to the deeper satisfaction adults experience when they achieve their goals or make meaningful choice. True fulfillment comes from independence, purpose, and personal growth, not from momentary pleasures. Clash. Childhood happiness is often controlled or limited by parents and circumstances. A toy, a treat, or playtime cannot replace the freedom to live life on your own terms. Adults can enjoy both simply joys and the satisfaction of creating, achieving, and shaping their own destiny. This is why happiness in adulthood is richer, more lasting, and far more empowering than the fleeting pleasures of childhood. Moving on to my summarization of our team's argument. Panel, our team firmly believes that adulthood, not childhood, represents the best and most meaningful of the year of life. Why? Because when you grow up, you not only gain knowledge and also get freedom and purpose that children simply don't have. First, adults possesses greater knowledge and maturity. They understand the world through experience and make informed choices and take care of their own path rather than being guided by others. Second, adults form stronger and deeper social connection. Unlike childhood friendships that often fade, adult relationships are built in trust, loyalty, and genuine understanding, allowing people to find true companionship and belonging. Third, adults have independence, the ability to live freely, choose your career, pursue your dreams, and make decisions without being controlled by parents. That freedom gives life direction, pride, and fulfillment. So while the government romanticizes childhood as simply and carefree, we on the opposition side prove that adulthood is where people find their real happiness, not through innocence, but through independence, growth, and self-determination. At the end of the day, childhood may be filled with fun and play, but it's also a time when you're constantly told what to do, what to believe, and who to be. True happiness and fulfillment come when you finally gain control over your own life, when you can make choices, chase ambitions, and shape your future with purpose. That's what adulthood gives us. It's not about losing joy. It's about gaining freedom, wisdom, and identity. For these reasons, we're proud to stand with the opposition and prove that the best year of life aren't the ones and where you're protected like a child, but the ones where you stand tall, live boldly, and true become yourself. Therefore, I'm more than proud to oppose. Thank you.
Life isn't just daisies, ponies, and unicorns that people who don't have enough knowledge to get to go to a university when you're 5 years old, right? Life doesn't work like that. Life isn't a miracle. Side opposition does not want to live in a world where your life is controlled by your parents. We keep telling you that being controlled is not the way for you to live a happy life. Adding on to our honorable first speaker then, adults are more likely to succeed. Adults have much more knowledge than children, and they have experiences that teach them to improve and become better. These new experiences teach them to succeed and improve as people, and in the end, where they have all this knowledge, they succeed. In childhood, though, you face bumps in the road and you make mistakes, and although this may be an eventual life, it is not like necessarily a happy one. Consequences of mistakes for children can be extreme, and although this teaches them something, it still leaves them heartbroken. What would you define a better life as? A life where you're satisfied because you have learned new things, or a life where you are getting punished because you do not know things? Of course, when you succeed, right? People often want to succeed no matter what age, but their world supports a world where people aren't satisfied. Adding on to my speech then on how because the more stressed you feel, the more that you will eventually feel like you need to do a better job. The more you want to do a better job, the more success it gives you, because you actually learn from mistakes. At the point where you were a child, though, because you don't get stressed out by your mistakes, you want to improve as much as adults improve. We think that improving is the key to success, and to do this, you need to have freedom by being an adult. Now, adding on to our third speaker, children sometimes don't even learn properly because they are taught by the same adults and with the same opinions. We still win from the very get-go because A, we create a world where you look back, reflect, and improve more, and B, we create a world where we prefer to choose your own life path more than a world where your choice gets chosen and you rely on your parents for everything. And with that stated, more than proud to oppose. Thank you.
The common ground in this debate is that both sides agree that the most important thing is finding improvement and getting satisfaction in that. However, we're a bit confused. Their first speaker tells us that children learn valuable lessons from their mistakes, while the rest of the speakers seem to think that there's lack of improvement in childhood. So we don't get what you're actually trying to say. And we will clarify that what we mean is that when in childhood you get a lot of mistakes, and through these mistakes you slowly learn to improve yourself, and you get a sense of satisfaction every time by improving. In this debate, what the opposition fails to understand is A, that the best years of life doesn't necessarily mean praise by others. When we're saying satisfaction, we're saying that you find satisfaction in completing your own goals. And B, childhood doesn't mean no responsibility. Our first speaker said there's no worries in money, but we're not saying that there's no responsibility when you messed up your neighbor's garden. You still have to pay the consequences for that. That's why parents punish children for doing things that they shouldn't do. So, and C, childhood doesn't mean momentary pleasures such as play. The whole point of childhood is a time where people develop and learn skills. That's basically not momentary pleasures. The pleasures that they get is from learning skills and slowly avoiding mistakes that they used to. So for those reasons, we believe childhood is a colorful period of life, unlike adulthood, which their first speaker said has almost no mistakes in life, and that's what makes it the best years of life. Thank you.